You're listening to the Jōrni Podcast. Could the way you dream actually tell you about how you're living your life? Explore the details with me in today's episode. This episode contains adult subject matter and some listeners may be triggered by this content. Listener discretion is advised. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Jōrni Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Living beyond survival starts with noticing how the body expresses our experiences in sleep, dreams, and daily patterns. And the nervous system survival responses formed early in our lives continue to shape what safety, connection, and trust feels like as adults. Lynda Samphire is an intuitive and transformational guide who works with sleep, dreams, the nervous system, and light intentional microdosing. Her work is centered on helping people move out of survival patterns and into a more grounded, embodied relationship with themselves and with life. With a deep sensitivity to the inner world, Lynda supports people in restoring rest, reconnection with intuition, and listening to the body's natural intelligence. She weaves dream and night intelligence, nervous system awareness, and a respectful relationship with plant medicine into a slow, human approach that honors timing, receptivity, and trust. Her work is for those who are ready to stop proving, stop forcing change, and begin living from a place of inner coherence, allowing clarity, creativity, and meaningful transformation to emerge naturally. Here is my interview with Lynda Samphire. Hi, Lynda. It's so great to have you on the podcast today. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because living beyond survival is such a fascinating topic and one that I think is so much needed in this world today. So thank you for coming on the show today and joining me. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Petra, for having me. I'm excited to have a conversation.
Yeah. Me too. I feel like many of us are living in the survival at the moment with the state of the world. So I'm very glad that you're here to talk about that and share a bit about your perspective and different things that we can do to actually come back to ourselves and do a bit of healing. So we'll get started with maybe a bit about yourself. If you'd like to share pieces of your journey or your story that you feel connect to what you do today, and maybe share with our listeners also what it is that you do today.
Yeah, beautiful. I am an intuitive and transformational guide. My journey started really early in life where I lost my mother at the age of 2. And being 2 years old, we're not really aware of what that means other than she just didn't come home one day, right? She was just not there. It really, from an early age, shaped my nervous system. And there was other experiences through life where it confirmed that life was not safe. I was on this hypervigilant state. And I lived for many years in this really subtle survival state underneath the surface, and always earning my love, proving myself. And what I didn't understand was what was being carried beneath that was grief and loneliness and loss of a mother. I was in my thoughts a lot, wasn't connected to my body. And so it was from there through life that I'm like, this is just not working. This is really just not working. I was either depressed or anxious, but not enough to where I felt like that was normal. That was just a normal feeling within me. Kind of that roller coaster ride. So it affected everything. It affected career, affected making money. It affected my relationship with food, my relationship with people. everything. And I kept thinking something was wrong with me when really my nervous system was just in this hypervigilant state nonstop and very subtly under the surface, starting all the way back from a loss of my mother. So that's what moved me into this work. I'm also very highly sensitive, highly intuitive. And so that came into play, and that was overwhelming. And I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't even know what that was. My work now focuses on bringing people to embody their gifts and to restore the body and learn to be human.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. And actually, when you say learn to be human, that resonates so deeply. And with all of those experiences that we have as humans, as this part of our life journey, I do feel that events as you experienced as a young child, they change maybe even things in our body that we don't become aware of sometimes until we're adults and they're affecting us in certain ways. And we start looking into why certain things are happening or why things are the way they are with us. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so curious because you mentioned some of the things that you do now. And I feel that many of the things you touched on could be such an important part of our healing journeys. Do you want to share maybe a little bit about where you went from those experiences and coming into what you do now? How do you work with yourself and with clients in that sense now?
I think on a whole, it's about remembering who we really are beneath the operating system, beneath the conditioning. And it is really interesting to me that we have to learn how to be human, and all these innate abilities and innate things that come to us, like food and sleeping and our gifts and just restoring the system. That's something that we have to do. And all of that is innate to us. So I really like to teach about not adding on new skills, but really undoing the conditioning that taught us to override the body and learning how to be fully in the body, be human, and give ourselves permission to be who we truly are. That's what I had to do. And it became this trust within that developed.
Yeah. Actually, that is something that I feel many people who experience trauma, challenging situations, chronic stress, and any conditions that come along with that, we do become very disconnected from our bodies very often. And there were times for myself as well, I couldn't tell when I was hungry or when I was tired or what my body was even feeling. So that, as you're saying, to learn to be human again, what an important part of that healing journey. And then how do you know where to even start with this? A lot of us have very challenging experiences, and sometimes we have no idea where to even start to begin that healing or a change that is needed. How did you know where to start, and how do you work with your clients on where do you begin with them?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's beautiful. I love to work with the night consciousness, the sleep, the dreams. I don't think we realize how much that's telling us about what's going on and how that's creating how we operate during the day. We have suppressed REM cycles because we're overstressed. Our nervous systems are not regulated. Our bodies are not restored. We're reactive. We're numb. We're depressed. We're anxious. And a lot of it is based on our sleep and then not connecting with our dreams. One summer, I studied with an African shaman, and he told me and taught me that, especially in the Kosa tribe, that if you are not remembering your dreams, you're sick. And so you're taken in by the elders. They watch you, they work with you, help you begin remembering and working in that night consciousness again, and then send you back to the village. They still continue watching. They look at it as if you're sick, your whole village is sick. So it's working as a collective. And I look at that as we bring that into our society. I guess that's what I do as the elder, in a sense, working with that, but on a more modern way. And if we look at if we're missing, first of all, if we're missing sleep, our brain's not getting cleared out. We've got the beta amyloid protein linked to Alzheimer's and dementia. I think we could really correlate a connection there. Our dreams, our REM sleep. So when we have REM sleep, we're remembering our dreams, right? So that's I had dreams last night. I've got some REM. And that is where our emotions are integrating themselves, right? So many of us are in such hypervigilant state that our emotions through the day are not getting regulated and integrated. And then it's moving into the next day, and that's piling on top of one another. I love working in that place where, first of all, what are our dreams telling us? It's showing us how we're operating underneath the surface during the day. It doesn't need to be a big excavation of the dream. Learning to sleep hygiene and really looking at that place as a sanctuary rather than just something we get through, something we do, or something we try to do.
Yeah, that's really fascinating to me because especially as women, as we cycle through different seasons and different phases of our lives, our sleep, especially menopause, does a number on you as pregnancy. So we, I think, are very deeply connected to those sleep cycles, just even through our bodies and our hormones as well. So when that gets impacted, I can definitely see how that severs even more of our mind-body connection, our well-being in that sense. And how interesting that this is looked at as a communal challenge or a communal problem in some parts of the world, which it really should be in our Western world as well, because community is such a big part of healing as well. So that's really interesting to me. Now, how do you work with night consciousness in that sense? When you say that, I'm really curious. Do you work with people on the dreams that they remember, or do you interpret those, or how do you actually work with people on their night consciousness? And I guess the other part I would love to know about, how does that affect them? How does that affect their healing journeys, or what transforms when you start working on that?
What I think most important is we begin to remember ourselves and we begin to learn how to receive life. Many of us, most of us, are not in receptivity. We're not receiving. We're giving and outsourcing. So we learn to receive. Again, we need to sleep first. So there's a lot of sleep hygiene techniques. I also think it's important to get like a blood work done and see if we're deficient in vitamin D, magnesium, like what's going on there. Hydrating during the day. There's things, are we eating too late and our digestive system is working? Once we start regulating our sleep out and our dreams come back, which most people will say, I don't dream, or I don't remember my dreams. So we all dream because we need that. Our brains need that for release and the integration. However, if we're not remembering them, it's really just a relationship. We're just establishing a relationship. If we look back at Carl Jung, who said the two pathways to the soul are imagination and dreams. So we're literally having this beautiful space that we're bypassing to have this conversation with our highest self, which we're trying to reach through meditation and during the day, but we don't have the time to put it in, right? So at nighttime, I always begin everybody with dream tracking. And what that looks like is having a journal by your bed with a pen. And if there's a symbol, just one thing you can remember, write it down without needing to know what it is. We don't want to go to the dream dictionary. I'm calling that old school. It's personal to us. And we just want to sit it there. And maybe if we don't remember anything, how do I feel? What is the first feeling that's coming up? Do I feel excited? Do I feel sad? And if that's not connecting, it's, I don't remember, but thank you. And so we want to start letting our dreams know that we're listening. And what happens then, and what I've noticed in my clients is automatically our intuition begins to heighten during the day. We begin seeing the dream state come into the waking state, where maybe we had a white car in the dream, and then all of a sudden we're seeing white cars, and very healthy wise, not out of body. Like creativity and insight increase as our dreams begin to return. We remember we're getting answers to problems because we already know them. We pretty much know everything. And it's just connecting into that. Memory and cognitive function increase during the day. So chronic stress and our nervous system actually gets to repattern itself because you're getting into the REM. You're also bypassing the neuroadrenaline chemical that's quiet in our REM. And when we're dreaming, that's our anxiety button is down. And so we can receive without judgment, without the ego coming in and saying, no, we just get to receive. So it really is learning how to receive. And then how the dream language, our personal dream language, speaks to us. So then we take that symbol and maybe we just sit with it. Maybe we just let it flow through our body. Maybe we shut our eyes and it's there. There's the white car and you're touching it. And what's coming up? Is it a memory? Is it something that you love? Or I don't know. My husband had a dream the other night. He was looking for cars. And then the next day he had car trouble. So things like that, bleed over. And so I think if we're paying attention and really understanding that this is that really sacred space that we are within ourselves to explore and to welcome and to receive and to connect.
That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. As you're speaking, I'm thinking of my dreams from the past few nights. And interestingly enough, I do remember my dreams pretty much every single morning. So hopefully that's a good thing for my rest and recovery and my healing.
You're getting REM.
Yeah. And sometimes I wake up and I feel very anxious. So it's interesting also how our dreams can affect us right down into our sleep, right? When we wake up and takes a moment to reorient and go, okay, wait, that's not really happening right now to me. So, yeah.
Well, it's really interesting too. So you're saying you're waking up anxious. That can really show us where we're operating underneath the surface during the day. That's all going through you. And it's saying, hey, we might want to do a little bit of nervous system work during the day and that's the message that's coming through.
Yeah. Was it really that kind of first few steps? People started a dream journal. So even if they're saying they can't remember their dreams, that's probably a good thing. Put a journal there, put a pen there, and just see what comes up, I guess, if you're not remembering. Any other kind of insights for maybe some listeners who have trouble accessing their dreams or remembering them or even being conscious that they are dreaming? Or is it just simply allowing that connection to open for you?
Exactly what you just said. Beautiful. Allowing the connection. It's not a trying. We want to allow it to receive. And it may take a moment, right? So we want to allow the dream to come through. But even people just listening to us talk about it might have a dream tonight. That happens all the time when I'm teaching. But there's also before we go to sleep, as we're setting our sleep hygiene up, I always take a shower before I sleep, wash off the day, especially for those of us, which I think most people listening to your podcast are very sensitive or have that sensitivity about them, and we take on energies. Just rinsing that off can be night or day. And then setting an intention. Thank you for the dreams tonight. Thank you for speaking to me. Thank you for the clarity, just anything. And then be really unattached to what comes through. And if it's a nightmare, welcome it. Yeah, I just did a post on nightmares, and it's really then what's happening is our nervous system is saying, okay, I feel safe enough to speak, and it screams.
Wow, I never knew that. That's really interesting because, I'm sure that even as adults, we often have nightmares and then wonder, oh, does that mean we're going to have a bad day going forward? But interesting if that's connected to our nervous system as well and how that can communicate with us. A lot of insight into our body and our mind for ourselves to work with as well.
Yeah, I've had a reoccurring nightmare. This was just backing up real quick. This was one of the ways when I was young, I was always a vivid dreamer, and my mother would appear in my dreams. And it was very comforting for me. Some of them were scary. Some of them were comforting just to know that she was there. And so it was how I connected with her. And I always knew that there was something really special about our dream world and our ability to connect with consciousness on a different level. So it was very comforting for me. However, later in life, I started having, when I was moving through fear, because that was the basis of all my stuff inside, was that fear of just truly being me, being alone, and not knowing why my mother left. And it was Michael Myers from the movie Halloween. He would show up coming out of the walls, chasing me, following me in a car. Like, it was really scary because he's scary. And I just made a post about this too and put his face at the end. It was funny how that one got a lot of views. But what happens, it was so interesting because I don't even want to go to sleep tonight because you just get that somatic feeling inside because it's fear moving. But you're in that state of, was something bad going to happen? Is something after me? And when I began to work more with my nightmares, all of a sudden I had a dream that he was sick and he was laying on a hospital bed and I was holding his hand, healing him. And to embrace Michael Myers is not, and hold his hand is not necessarily something you think you do. But what it showed me was he was the metaphor for fear and that my fear was healing.
Wow. Yeah, my husband made me watch the whole series of the Michael Myers, so I can definitely feel you as you're talking about that in your nightmares. But interesting how we process things and how, I want to say, our subconscious is really aware of all of these things and brings it up. And as you said before, right, in these symbols and these patterns that we can actually start to understand in a way that makes sense for our body and our mind in the conscious world. So that's a really interesting part of that healing journey. And I feel maybe a lot of listeners weren't aware that we can use dreams or night consciousness as part of our healing path. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
I think it's where we start. I think it's really where we begin to start because, again, it's innate to all of us. And if we look back at indigenous and cultures, they use their dreams to guide where they would hunt, where they would move their tribe to, when they would plant. Like, they had the dream weaver in the tribes and they would bring forward the information. It's where they went to.
Yeah, I guess then probably if we look back, maybe our ancestors were a little bit more connected to that part of themselves also because of the communities, right? That we're all connected in that together, that maybe we've lost that connection a little bit more in this world. So I think it's great that we can incorporate that and can integrate that into our lives and our healing. This is where we start, you said. So where do we go from there? Where do we go from the dream work and the night consciousness if we want to continue our healing journeys?
Yeah, integrating that into our waking life so it works. One of the modalities I brought on about 5 years ago, which was life-changing for me, was conscious microdosing as a supportive companion with earth medicines, psychedelics. And that really shifted everything, not as a fix, but as this really gentle, intentionally ally that walked beside me. And I noticed at that point with my clients that everything started catapulting forward. So we're still working in the night consciousness. However, what I noticed was one of the things that I feel is happening is our nervous systems, our bodies are not restored. So we need to restore the body first. And I work with a specific mushroom called Amanita muscaria. She works with the central nervous system, kind of tilling the field so that the nervous system can complete itself. What's happening then? We're sleeping. REM's coming back. Dreams are coming back. We're moving through our day as if a net has come out and caught us. Very, very subtle. And then in addition to that, moving into possibly psilocybin. And that's working with our serotonin receptors. We're working with the neural pathways of the brain, shifting our default mode network, our behaviors, knocking on these emotional doors that are ready to be looked at and working with those and then taking those into our sleep and integrating that through so that we have that full solar lunar circle that we're working with and healing. And in these really small subperceptual doses that do not alter us, we still have to go to work. We still want to have family and do our things during the day. It softens the nervous system. I look at Amanita as tilling the field and psilocybin as aerating it. I have noticed, especially now with all the chaos, I really noticed this since COVID, that we need to restore our systems. Otherwise, we'll do all this work and it's not gripping. It's not sustainable. So if we restore the nervous system, working with that central nervous system, then when we start going into the healing process, it sticks, it closes, and it's much more graceful. It closes itself, and less work, I should say. We're not working as hard. We're allowing. It's about the intentionality with these medicines, the relationship, and it's developing the relationship deeper with ourselves.
It almost seems to me that these plant medicines really reach a part of us that we have trouble accessing with things maybe like yoga or talk therapy or, all the different things that we try for self-care, of course, and our own healing journeys. And while those are all helpful to some degree and might help make us feel better and take care of ourselves, I feel they may not reach that certain part that these plant medicines can access. And I've heard that now from many, many people telling me that these plant medicine journeys and microdosing actually have changed their lives entirely to the better, with people speaking about mental health challenges that simply were resistant to medication or other challenges that they were going through. And this was the only path that really helped them heal going forward. So very interesting that you're touching on that. And also, by the sounds of it, that your experience was very impactful with the plant medicine as well. So is there a certain, I want to say, energy to these plant medicines, or a certain experience that happens that's just very different from, as I said, self-care or therapy and things like that? How do you feel about that?
What I have experienced for myself and what I've seen in people I've worked with is, for me, it brought this sense of safety in my body that I could not reach prior to. It was like this dial just kind of flipped up. And how did I define safety? My intuition and creativity came in. Again, as I had said earlier, trust in myself. The waves of consciousness would flow through me. So I moved into the space of freedom within my body. It's not an overnight thing. I had to really commit to myself, and it's an inward journey. We're not outsourcing anymore, and we're learning about ourselves, and that's really difficult. I did experience the depths of darkness and come out the other side of it, and I had a very, very beautiful container for that. But this deeper sense of remembering and self-trust and why we're here and the gift of being human, I have so much clarity around that. And then that's what brings in the safety in the body, because I know exactly what's happening is supposed to be happening. And I just forgot.
Yeah.
And I believe these medicines guide us back to that.
That reconnection. Yeah. Wow. Now, you said that you had a beautiful container. So for our listeners, is it important to work on this with somebody who can be your guide maybe, or who can hold the space for you? Or how do you view when people want to start these journeys, and not just microdosing, but maybe also go on a plant medicine journey that's maybe with higher doses? Is it important to work with somebody who can guide you through that, or how have you experienced that?
I feel so much. Again, these medicines can become uncomfortable because they're bringing up stuff that's been dormant for so long. And for me, it's like, well, what do I do with this? What do I do with this that's just now come forward, whether it's a microdosing or a full journey? And to have that container to normalize what's happening and to allow the body to speak and what that looks like, to be messy, to feel safe crying and laughing, and all those somatic releases and cathartic releases that we have. it's not so much that you're coming into this container for someone to do the work for you. You're learning how to really see yourself in a different light and learn how to receive. So part of the container is receiving love, receiving support, receiving the tenderness. It's so personal, and to feel safe. What happens when something comes up, when the anger comes up? How do we normalize that? How do we work with that? How can I express myself without projecting it? The tears, the sadness, the depression, the anxiety, and then moving out of our conditions. And that container really holds that, because that's what's going to come forward. And then normalizing it. Yeah, let's normalize crying, shall we?
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And actually, it does feel so cleansing very often to just let the body respond in whatever way it feels called to do. So, yeah, absolutely. It actually sounds really beautiful what you're working with your clients on. There's a messy part in all of this, but that's also human. That's part of us being human. So,
most definitely. I was in a larger journey, and I had a moment where I came out of it just crying so hard. And right away, the first thing we want to do is, well, why am I crying? What's wrong? And then I hear this voice say, nothing's wrong. You're in release. Just allow this to move. And you're releasing through your eyes right now. So I'm like, okay. Later, what came through in the night consciousness was my soul moving through, showing me what it's like to be human, and saying it craves the contrast. It craves the sadness and the happiness. And through all of it, the divine is moving through us. And I could feel that coming through. It was so beautiful. But it's really the experience of being human is all of it. The anger, the gracefulness, the tranquility, the peace, the dark, the light. And as the soul moves through, it's thriving on the experience, and it's how we evolve and how we expand. So what these medicines really taught me was how to surrender into that and move through that, so we're not in resistance. Then we don't have the war inside, allowing that nervous system to complete itself from whatever experience we got stuck in way back. And maybe it's 2 years old like me. That's really what these medicines taught me, how to be human, how to allow everything as experiences rather than the victim.
yeah. Wow. It sounds so profound. And I do very often think to myself, if we didn't know these contrasts, as you called them, if we didn't know sadness, we wouldn't know happiness. If we didn't know pain, we also wouldn't know what thriving felt like. These contrasts, I think, is part of having this full experience in this life and actually being connected to everything. So, yeah. And if not, we're missing huge parts of that experience. And I also feel of ourselves, right? Bringing all that back and actually being able to experience that is part of coming into that alignment for a lot of us, that connection we've lost through different experiences. So, yeah, that sounds very beautiful.
Beautifully said. Those polarities, right? I mean, that's the human experience. That's why we come here. Crave it. We crave it, the dark, the light. You cannot have light without dark. We hear that all the time, but then what does that mean? And there's this misconception and conditioning that we're supposed to be this happy, productive, making lots of money, and we forget fun, and we forget sleeping, we forget resting, we forget enjoying because we're so there. But that's the duality of it. How do we know what we do want if we don't experience what we don't want, right?
Yeah.
It's all part of the game of life.
Yeah.
And we love it so much that we come here many times.
We come back for it. Yeah.
Oh, that was fun. I can't wait to get back.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I hope this gives our listeners a different path, maybe, to look at their own lives and their own healing journeys and consider some of the other things that are out there that they may have not tried yet or may have been curious about. So thank you for sharing that with me and the listeners. And Lynda, if our listeners are curious now, and maybe some of them actually live close to you, how is this done? Is this done in person or virtually, or how do you work with clients?
It's all done virtually. I work with people actually all over the world. And I love to start people on a 30-day nervous system reset with microdosing amanita. And then we work with that and then possibly moving into psilocybin. Some people are like, you know what? I feel really good. I also have groups that I do. Like I have one coming up in April called The Living Dream. And that's where we're really going to get into working with ancestral work at night, the liminal spaces, our gifts, our intuition, and timelines. To start, though, I have on my website a downloadable program, Sleep and Dream Series. I guide you through videos on how to start going inward, working with the night consciousness, and really exploring yourself on that level, moving into sleep, moving into the dream work. And starting there is really where I like. And it's very simple. There's also the choice to microdose if you choose, but not necessary.
Amazing. And we will be linking to all of Lynda's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check there on where you can find your website. And also, I'm guessing you have your events listed on the website as well for what's upcoming for the programs. So we will link to that so our listeners can have some resources. And if there's something you're curious about, this is the time you can reach out to Lynda. You can find out a bit more. Start with the downloadable series that she's talking about and dip your toes in and see if this is something that would help you on your healing journey. And of course, reach out to us on the show, on the podcast, and let me know about your experiences. I'm always curious to hear how our listeners make out with all of the resources that we do offer and the connections and wonderful guests like yourself who offer a space to actually explore ourselves, reconnect with ourselves, and begin a lot of the parts of that healing journey that we may have been looking for so long. Thank you, Lynda, for being here today and for joining me today and for sharing all this wisdom and your own journey with our listeners and with me. I kind of feel that in this past half hour, my perception has shifted already with all the things that you have shared. So thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you were here today.
Thank you, Petra. What a fun conversation. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it was my absolute pleasure. And thanks everyone for tuning in today, for sticking with us through some new ideas and new perspectives that you may have not considered before. And take care, everyone, and be well. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Jōrni Podcast, please support us by subscribing, sharing on social media, and leaving us a review. We appreciate you. And you can find more of The Jōrni on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our website, thejorni.com. Sending you love and courage, and see you next time.